Hey, this is Brooks with Character Design Forge. By the way, Taya wasn't feeling good today, so I ended up cutting my own hair to make like half a month's worth of videos. How'd I do? I'm only accepting compliments. Like we talked about last time, this is the lesson that I give on student critiques most often, so as far as just pure data is concerned, this is the advice you need the most too. By now we've created the base shapes for our head, and you've been able to practice turning this shape around. The next part of the head we want to focus on is everything to do with the eyes. This is extremely important because, like we said, we communicate by looking at other people's heads, and where do we look the most for that vital communication? The eyes. It's very easy to get the eyes wrong, but on the flip side, they can be a vital tool for expression on your characters when you get them right. I want to talk really quickly about drawing negative space, or cutting into something we've already drawn. We already did this when we planed down the side of the head, and in this case, we're creating the shape for the eye sockets. Here's some optional information, don't worry too much, this is just to help understanding. In 3D modeling, we end up being able to do something that we can't in real life, and that's create a shape of negative space called a Boolean and use it to cut into something. If we look back at our skull, we can see that the eye socket is made up of the brow above and the cheeks below. These create a sort of protective circle, which our eyes are then recessed behind ever so slightly. Our eyes are incredibly sensitive, so we have the system of lashes, lids, and finally this socket shape to protect them from harm. If you remember the cylinder we drew before, this is simply a square shape with a circle on each end. If we make one of the circles larger than the other, we create a sort of tapered cone or funnel shape. We can use this shape to cut in to our head. First, a circle to represent that outer brow and cheek, and a second to represent the area where the eye itself is. Because that smaller circle that represents the base of the eye is cut in and recessed into the head, if we look at the head in a 3/4 view, our far eye, or the one on our left here, isn't going to be as visible as the one on the right because there's space that's covering over top of it. This is going to be even more added to when we add the nose, which is an additional visual block. We want to do our best here to make the eyes symmetrical, and that starts with these sockets being in a symmetrical position. Something to keep in mind is that in a 3/4 view, it might be easy to think about the eye that's further away from us in space being shorter or smaller in some way. While it is thinner, as in we see less of it over here, they're still the same height unless the amount of perspective or the lens that you were using was so extreme that this eye was so much bigger than the other. It's an easy mistake to make. Try to make sure to keep both of these eyes the same height as best you can. We'll spend more on the eye in our next video, level 3. Remember that there's bone, muscle, and fat around the brow and cheeks, so you can add some mass in these areas too. To get some more definition into the face, let's add some lines that I've found to be helpful. A lot of times these indicators come from studying real faces, so make sure that as you practice to try studies and see what things you observe. For most artists, they develop their own shorthand for how to represent things by doing this long-form work first. This line is going to be a fairly zigzagging one from the temple to the chin, and it basically divides the face of the head from the side of the head. Remember, because of how round the head is, it's really subtle. It's not like a 90-degree corner. From the temple straight down, we want to make a corner to indicate the edge of the eye, and then a second corner to indicate the edge of the cheek. Next, we have an inward curving line towards the chin, making a sort of curved trapezoid. Now we have the edge of the face defined. It's something that we call a contour line, a line running on the inside of a shape to show some more information about its surface. The next big structural piece of the face is the nose. But as we mentioned, there's such a beautiful variety of noses across humankind, so there's no such thing as a neutral or default nose, but we can define the basic structure of a few general types. Our basic cube here does most of the work for us, merging into the brow on top and flaring out with the nostrils at the bottom. How shallow or pronounced the nose is, how square or round it is completely up to you. I highly recommend that you experiment with a ton of different nose shapes and sizes. The base of the nose is pretty complex and varied, but it usually helps to create a second cube-like structure as your base to make up the nostrils and tip of the nose. Of course, the same amount of rounding, pointing, creating different planes, as you can see me doing here with a few different shapes of nose, all apply. Instead of hand-waving away the mouth by making a single line, try to spend some time studying the forms of the lips. Usually the top lip starts with an M shape like this, and there's several unique planes on the lips as you complete them. You can always simplify or pull back on the detail in practice with your characters, but it helps to know how the mouth is shaped, and we'll come back to this in level 3. Something to mention here too that probably should have gone at the beginning of all of these videos is that you'll notice that I'm really just sussing out a couple of lines as I go and redrawing or erasing to massage out and sculpt a particular shape that I'm trying to get. Think about if you started with a circular piece of paper and needed to get it into a perfect square. Likely it wouldn't be just 4 specific cuts that would get you this perfect shape. Instead, you'd need to slowly rotate around and get things just right. That's what we're doing here. Feel free to erase away as you need to, redraw lines, get more confident with them. You are creating new shapes and ideas here, and unless you've been drawing a certain character over and over again, you aren't going to be able to just lay down 1 or 2 lines to complete them at a time. What we're doing with our construction here is creating those blueprints. Nothing here is final. That means that you can remake these blueprints as much as you want. Let's revisit the cheeks now. We placed them, but we want to think about the mass that's here. There's the pronounced bone of the skull, then cheek muscles, and then fat tissue and skin over top. Just make a note of this as you draw and include the mass where possible. For a more gaunt or skinny character design, you might choose to chisel those features out so that there's no fat or muscle, but understanding the different appearances the cheeks can have gives you more vocabulary. We will also come back to this in level 3. Finally, for the last of the features, the ears can vary as much as the nose, but in general, you want to add this circular shape on or behind that center line that we made for the side of the head. There's a lot of complex geometry in here if we want to get into it, and most artists tend to distill a few simple shorthands for the ears to define them. Remember, there's a lot of character that we can get out of the ears as well. You've already spent some time with the base structure of the head, and as I give you the assignment to work on adding the features, you might be wondering, do I have to draw all of these little lines, these measurements, contour lines, every time I sit down to draw a head or face? The answer is, of course, no. This is all part of learning through by going through the act of drawing those lines. Now, as you get the hang of things, as you digest this information and understand it inherently, you'll start to intuit and develop your own shorthand as well. So that's your assignment, is to work on these basic features, and for level 3, we'll really embellish what we've been learning with some advanced stuff. Should be a lot of fun. If you're watching this as it's uploaded, level 3 will be available in a couple of days instead of next week, as per our usual upload schedule here on Character Design Forge. If you'd like a comprehensive character design curriculum over 18 hours of video learning, make sure to check out the Learn Character Design course at learncharacterdesign.com. It takes you through drawing as well as story and design to really give you the power to be a character designer yourself. This month's Biko's backpack looks like this. It's a Budvay foil trading card and Inferglit hard enamel pin. This is a new original package of art from me in your mailbox every month that you can get over on patreon.com/bageldenizen. And you can follow me at bageldenizen on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok. Thanks so much for watching, and have fun creating.